My name is Liora Wren Mercer. I am 36 years old, and for most of my adult life, I have made a living reading what other people overlook. I work as a hydrogeology consultant in Denver, Colorado, studying groundwater, soil layers, mineral patterns, and the quiet evidence hidden beneath ordinary land. That was why my family should have known better than to lie to me about land. After my grandfather Alden Mercer died, my mother, my father, and my brother sold his ranch of 214 acres in Alfalfa County, Oklahoma, for $684,000. Then they told everyone I had walked away from the estate because I had built a life in Colorado. But I had not walked away. I had not signed anything. And when I opened the county records, I found my name attached to an affidavit saying I had voluntarily given up my claim, dated on a day I was working hundreds of miles away in Denver. That was the first lie. The second was worse. The sale documents said surface estate only. My family had sold the farmhouse, the barn, the fences, and the land they could see. But before Grandpa Alden died, he had recorded one deed they could not touch, a mineral and subsurface deed with my name on it. And beneath the southwest pasture, the same patch of ground my family called useless, the preliminary mineral lease potential came back between $3.8 and $5.2 million. They thought they had erased me from my grandfather's legacy. They thought silence meant consent. But Grandpa Alden had left me a letter, a field notebook, and one instruction that changed everything. Read the records, then read the ground. This is how my family sold what they could see and lost control of everything they tried to bury. My older brother, Dawson Mercer, was the one who stayed in Oklahoma. He was 39, ran a small landscaping business that never quite needed stop help, and somehow that made him the loyal one. My mother, Marlene, treated his presence like proof of character. My father, Grant, rarely argued with her about anything. If Marlene said Dawson had sacrificed, Grant nodded. If she said I had chosen a different life, he looked at the floor. Dawson stayed. You built a life somewhere else. That was the sentence I heard in different forms for years. When I got a scholarship, when I took my first job in Colorado, when I missed a birthday because I was on a field site, when Dawson needed money and I did not offer fast enough. By the time Grandpa Alden died, they had already decided what kind of daughter, sister, and granddaughter I was. My mother called me late. The funeral was almost arranged by then. I was working on a groundwater assessment outside Denver when my phone rang. Marlene sounded tired but not surprised by her delay. She told me the service would be in Cherokee, Oklahoma, and that I should come if I could. If I could. I booked the earliest flight I could afford, landed in Oklahoma City, rented a car, and drove north with my black dress folded across the passenger seat. I made it to the church exhausted, numb, and late enough for everyone to notice. No one saved me a seat. Dawson stood near the front with Marlene and Grant, like the three of them had formed a complete family before I ever walked in. His wife Kendra stood beside him, quiet and uncomfortable. She gave me a small look that might have been sympathy, but she did not move. I slipped into the back pew beside people I barely knew and stared at the back of my mother's head while the pastor talked about legacy. After the burial, everyone went back to the farmhouse. There were casseroles on folding tables, paper plates, coffee in a metal urn, the ordinary American machinery of grief. People hugged Marlene. They shook Dawson's hand. They told Grant they were sorry. I moved through the kitchen like a guest. Eventually, I went down the hall to Grandpa's office. The room smelled like dust, leather, and the faint tobacco scent that had clung to his jackets even after he quit smoking. The shelves were still packed with old county maps, seed catalogs, notebooks, and coffee cans full of screws. But the narrow shelf near the window was empty. The leather document case was gone. It had always been there. Dark brown leather, scratched at the corners, with a dull brass lock. Grandpa never let anyone open it. Once, when I was 17, I teased him about keeping state secrets in there. He only looked at me and said, "If anyone ever tells you I left nothing, look for the case." I found Marlene in the kitchen rinsing a serving spoon. "Where is Grandpa's leather case?" Her hand paused under the faucet for half a second, then she kept rinsing. "Just old papers. Your father cleared that room out." Grant was standing by the back door. He heard me. He did not look up. "What kind of papers?" Marlene shut off the water. "Liora, this is not the day." Dawson stepped in from the dining room, already wearing that protective son expression my mother loved so much. "Mom is grieving. Don't start digging through things." That word stayed with me. Digging. I had no proof, not then, only the feeling that something had been removed too quickly, like disturbed soil smoothed over before anyone could see the shovel marks. 3 weeks later, Marlene called me in Denver. She told me the ranch was being sold. The farmhouse needed repairs. The barn was unsafe. Taxes were coming due. Dawson needed help keeping his business afloat, and she and Grant needed stability after losing Grandpa. "You have a good job, sweetheart. You are settled out there. Dawson has a family here." I asked about a will. She gave a soft sigh, the kind she used when she wanted to sound wounded instead of cornered. "Your grandfather did not leave anything clear enough to fight over, and he would not want us tearing each other apart over dirt." I almost argued. Instead, I thanked her for telling me and ended the call. That night, I opened the Alfalfa County Public Records database. The listing was easy to find. Harlan Rural Realty had posted it on November 6, 2025. 214 acres, older farmhouse, barn in need of repair, seasonal creek bed, as-is sale, cash buyer preferred. Sale price, $684,000. I pulled comparable sales in the area. Similar acreage, even with older structures, had been closing between $875,000 and $940,000. The price was not impossible, but it was low enough to move fast. Then I saw the line that made me sit back. Surface estate only. Below it, in the title exception notes, was another line. Mineral rights reserved by prior recorded instrument. Plains County Title Services had handled the closing for the surface estate. That meant the buyers could take the farmhouse, barn, fences, and land use above ground, with exceptions clearly noted. It also meant someone had already separated what was underneath. I kept searching. The affidavit had been filed on October 29, 2025, 11 days after Grandpa died. It stated that the relevant heirs had been notified. It stated that I, Liora Wren Mercer, had voluntarily waived any claim connected to the estate and surface transfer. On the last page, there were initials that looked enough like mine to fool someone who did not know better. Beneath them was the name of a local notary, Ellen Foy. I checked the date again. That day, I had been in Colorado. I had a time card, project emails, and a scheduled meeting at Front Range Water and Soil Consulting to prove it. I sat alone in my apartment, the glow of my laptop washing over the room, staring at my name on a lie filed in a public record. My family had not just left me out, they had turned my silence into consent. I did not sleep that night. I made coffee at 5:40 in the morning and never drank it. The mug sat beside my laptop while I opened every file again. The listing, the affidavit, the title notes, the page with my initials that were not my initials. By 7:18 on January 8, 2026, Denver time, I called Dawson. He answered on the fourth ring, already irritated. "What is this about, Liora?" I looked at the affidavit on my screen. "Did you see me sign anything giving up my claim to Grandpa's estate?" Silence moved through the line before his voice came back tighter. "Mom handled all that." That was not what I asked. He let out a breath through his nose. The ranch is sold. The closing was on December 19. The money has already been divided. You cannot just show up now and make everything complicated because you changed your mind. I had not moved from my chair, but my fingers were locked so hard around my phone that my knuckles had gone white. I never changed my mind. I was never asked. Dawson shifted somewhere on his end. I heard a truck door chime, then slam. He was probably outside his shop, avoiding Kendra or the crew he could barely afford to pay. Mom said you signed something years ago. Years ago? I could hear how weak that sounded even to him. Maybe not signed, maybe agreed. I do not know, Liora. Mom said it was handled. There it was, the family motto in its purest form. Mom said. Mom handled it. Nobody needed to ask questions if the answer made Dawson's life easier. Did you take the money before or after you read the affidavit? His voice rose. I am not doing this with you. Of course not. Doing this would require looking at the paper. He hung up. I sat still for a moment, then saved the call log. Priya would later tell me that was the first smart thing I did that day. Marlene called 9 minutes later. I let it ring until the last second. When I answered, her voice was soft, almost wounded. Liora, you scared your brother. I opened a blank document and typed the date at the top. I asked him a question. You accused him. I asked whether he saw me sign a document I have never seen before. A tired sigh came through the phone, carefully placed. My mother had always known how to sound like the person being harmed. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You are taking a painful family matter and turning it into something ugly. The affidavit has my initials on it. Your grandfather had barely passed. We were all grieving. Things were moving quickly. That still does not explain my initials. She went quiet just long enough for me to hear the furnace click on in my apartment. Dawson has a family. His business was already under pressure. Your father and I are not young. You have a stable job in Denver. You have built a good life away from all this. Away from Grandpa? Do not twist my words. Then tell me why a public document says I waived my rights. Her voice lowered. Do you really want to drag your grandfather's name into court over land? That was how she did it. She never answered the question directly. She moved the pain until I was the one holding it. I ended the call before my anger could become useful to her. A few minutes later, Grant texted, Please let this go. Your mother is under enough stress. I stared at the message, waiting for another one, waiting for him to ask if I was all right, waiting for him to ask what paper I meant, waiting for anything that sounded like a father noticing his daughter's name had been used without her consent. Nothing came. Then my phone rang. Grant. I answered. Dad? There was silence on the line, long enough that I could hear him breathing. Talk to your mother. Then the call ended. That hurt more than Dawson yelling. Dawson had always been selfish in obvious ways. Grant's cowardice was quieter. It walked around the room pretending to be peace. By noon, the rest of the family had started doing what families do when they want to punish someone without saying so directly. Marlene posted a photo from Great Salt Plains Lake. A small cabin sat behind her and Grant, pale blue with white trim, a winter sky washed thin above it. Her caption read, Family is everything. Alden would be glad we are taking care of one another. Dawson posted a picture of his new truck half an hour later. Naomi Mercer commented first, So happy Grandpa's land helped the people who stayed. Silas Mercer added that land should bless the hands that cared for it. I took screenshots of everything. My hands were steady by then, not because I was calm, but because part of me had gone cold enough to function. That afternoon, Aunt Verity called. I almost did not answer. Verity was Alden's younger sister, a retired nurse with a directness that made most of the family uncomfortable. Still, she had been quiet since the funeral, and quiet people in my family usually meant they had chosen the easier side. Her voice came carefully. Liora, your mother says you are upset about the estate. Upset was a small word. Did she tell you I walked away from it? Verity did not answer right away. She said you did not want to be involved. I closed my eyes. Aunt Verity, do you honestly believe Grandpa died without clear papers? A soft sound left her, not quite a laugh. Your grandfather wrote down the date he changed the bulb in the barn light. He kept receipts for baling twine. No, honey, I do not believe Alden left things unclear. I sat forward. Did he ever mention a lawyer named Howard Bellamy? This time, the silence had weight. Yes, in Cherokee, not the family lawyer. Your grandfather said some papers were safer outside the house. My heart began to beat harder. Do you remember anything else? A few months before he died, he took that leather case out of the farmhouse. Marlene asked about it. He told her it was old tax paperwork. She was angry for 2 days. After we hung up, I went back into the county records. I opened the title summary again, slower this time. Surface estate only no longer looked like legal clutter. It looked like a door. The buyers had purchased the farmhouse, the barn, the fences, the right to use the land above ground. They had not purchased what had been reserved beneath it. I found the reference number attached to the prior recorded instrument and paid for the scan. The file opened badly, tilted and faint, like someone had fed old paper through a tired machine. But I could read enough. Prepared by Howard Bellamy. Recorded before Alden Mercer died. Grantee, Liora W. The rest of my name blurred into gray. I took a screenshot, downloaded the file, and backed it up twice. By 3, I was sitting across from Priya Nance in the break room at Front Range Water and Soil Consulting. She had a container of soup in front of her that she forgot to eat while she read the documents on my laptop. She finally looked up. Do not call your mother again. I almost smiled. That is your professional geochemistry opinion? That is my professional opinion as someone who does not want to watch you hand them ammunition. Save everything. Texts, call logs, screenshots, PDFs. Write a timeline while it is fresh. If they try to say you are emotional or confused, make sure the paper is cleaner than their story. I nodded. And, Liora, if there is a mineral rights issue here, this is no longer a family misunderstanding. I called Bellamy Estate and Land Council from my car after work. A woman answered, then placed me on hold when I gave my name. Howard Bellamy came on the line less than a minute later. Liora Mercer, I have been waiting for you to call. My mouth went dry. He told me he had sent a letter after the funeral. It came back. He called the farmhouse. A woman told him I had no interest in estate matters and asked him not to contact the family again while they were grieving. I did not ask who the woman was. I already knew. Howard's voice stayed calm. You should come to Cherokee. There are documents your grandfather wanted you to see in person. I booked a flight to Oklahoma City that night for January 15th. Then I sent Priya a folder with every file I had collected, arranged by date, clean and labeled. I did not know what Howard Bellamy was holding, but for the first time since Alden died, I felt something other than grief and suspicion. I felt the faint shape of my grandfather's hand still reaching for mine, through the record he had left behind. On January 15th, 2026, I landed in Oklahoma City before noon and picked up a rental car with a weak heater and Oklahoma plates. The drive to Cherokee felt longer than it was. Winter had flattened the fields into strips of tan grass and red dirt, and the sky looked too wide for the grief I was carrying. I passed a gas station with deer feed stacked by the door, a feed supply store with faded signs in the window, and a church board advertising a bean supper for Saturday night. Nothing looked dramatic. That was the strange part. The world had not changed its shape just because mine had cracked. Bellamy Estate and Land Council sat in a one-story brick building near the courthouse square. The sign out front was old enough that the gold paint had started to dull. Inside, the office smelled like paper, coffee, and the kind of furniture nobody buys anymore because it lasts too long. Howard Bellamy stood when I walked in. He was 72, narrow-shouldered, with silver hair combed back and reading glasses hanging from a cord around his neck. Behind him, county maps covered one wall, and metal filing cabinets lined another. Liora Mercer. He held out his hand. His grip was dry and steady. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Bellamy." Howard gestured toward the chair across from his desk. "Howard is fine. Your grandfather never called me anything else unless he was mad about my bill." That almost made me smile. Almost. I sat down, my purse pressed against my knees like I needed something to hold in place. Did my grandfather have a will? Howard did not make me wait. Yes, and he was very specific about you. The words hit harder than I expected. I looked toward the window because I did not want this quiet old lawyer to watch my face fall apart. He opened a drawer, removed a leather document case, and placed it on the desk between us. For a moment, I could not touch it. The brass lock was scratched. The right corner had the same dark scuff I remembered from Grandpa Alden knocking it off the shelf once when I was in high school. Marlene had told me it was gone. Old papers, she had said. Nothing important. My fingers closed around the edge of the case. She lied from the beginning. Howard lowered his eyes. Your grandfather was afraid she might. Inside the case, everything was arranged in careful stacks. A cream envelope with my name written in Grandpa's slanted handwriting, a stapled will, a recorded mineral and subsurface deed, a small field notebook with a dark blue cover, a business card tucked inside the notebook, yellowed at the corners. I opened the envelope first. There was only one page. Grandpa's handwriting was smaller than I remembered, but steady. Liora, if you're reading this, then someone has tried to make you believe you were not meant to know. Do not waste breath arguing with people who benefit from confusion. They will say Dawson stayed. They will say you left. Being near a thing is not the same as protecting it. I do not hate your brother, but I do not trust him to stand straight when your mother cries and money is on the table. You ask the next question. You always have. That is why I'm trusting you with this. Read the records, then read the ground. Alden. I set the page down carefully. My chest hurt in a way that had nothing to do with surprise. It was recognition. He had seen the shape of the family long before I had been willing to name it. Howard waited until I looked up. He came to me in 2024. He wanted his will updated, but more than that, he wanted certain property interests recorded separately. He slid the will toward me. The will was not dramatic. Alden had not left me the whole ranch. He had not cut everyone else out. The surface estate, the house, the barn, the visible land, could pass through the estate after expenses. It was practical, almost plain. Then Howard pointed to a paragraph near the end. This section confirms that any asset already conveyed by recorded deed before his death is not part of the estate to be divided. I read it twice. So, the ranch sale. The surface sale, Howard corrected gently. The sale on December 19th transferred what the sellers could transfer, subject to the title exceptions. It did not transfer what your grandfather had already separated. He placed the recorded mineral and subsurface deed in front of me. There was my name, not blurred, not partial, not forged into a lie. Liora Wren Mercer. The deed conveyed the mineral rights, subsurface rights, and the right to negotiate leases connected to most of the 214 acres. It had been signed, notarized, and recorded before Alden died. Howard tapped the recording stamp. This is why that listing said surface estate. A person can own the land above while someone else owns the mineral estate below. Happens often enough in Oklahoma, especially on older ranch land. My family sold what they could see. That is one way to put it. And Grandpa gave me what they did not understand. Howard's face softened, but he did not make it sentimental. He gave you the legal right to protect it. Whether it has commercial value still has to be determined. This is not money in a bank account. It is a property interest. That mattered. It kept the room from turning into a fantasy. Grandpa had not handed me a fortune. He had handed me control over a question. I opened the field notebook. The first pages were ordinary. Dates, rainfall, fence repairs, notes about the old well. Then the entries changed. Southwest pasture dry after heavy rain. Clay seam lighter than North Ridge. Metallic taste in well water late August. Grass short even after fertilizer. One page had a business card tucked into it. Chase Rourke, landman. Under it, Grandpa had written in pencil, 2022, too interested in land nobody else wants. Several pages later, one corner was folded down. Liora will understand the southwest corner. I ran my thumb over the sentence until Howard cleared his throat softly. Your grandfather did not know exactly what was there, but after that landman came around, he wanted the mineral rights separated. He said if anyone in the family dismissed the dirt as useless, you would know better. I left Howard's office with scanned copies, the case, and instructions to contact a mineral rights attorney in Oklahoma City named Nora Vance. Before driving back, I stopped at Aunt Verity's small house on the edge of Cherokee. She opened the door in slippers and a cardigan, then froze when she saw the case in my hands. He got it out, she whispered. You knew? Not all of it, just that he did not want Marlene near it. She tore that office apart after the funeral, looking for something she'd pretended not to care about. I sat with her at the kitchen table while she made coffee neither of us drank. She did not ask how much anything was worth, only touched the leather case once, lightly, like it was part of her brother. Alden always did hate being pushed, she said. Quiet men can still make plans. That evening, from my motel room near Oklahoma City, I scanned everything again and sent the files to Nora Vance. I included the affidavit, the listing, the title exception, the deed, and photographs of the notebook pages. Then I texted Priya. I may need soil analysis, but only if I can get access legally. Her reply came a minute later. Good, legal first, dirt second. I did not call Marlene. I did not call Dawson. I did not give them the chance to cry, shout, explain, or twist the story before I understood it myself. For the first time, I knew exactly what Grandpa Alden had asked me to do. Read the records, then read the ground. Nora Vance called the next afternoon while I was still in the motel parking lot, balancing my laptop on the passenger seat and a gas station coffee in the cup holder. I had expected a cautious voice. Instead, she sounded like someone who had already sorted the facts into piles. The mineral deed appears valid on its face, she told me. It was recorded before your grandfather died. The December 19 sale transferred the surface estate, not the mineral estate. Plains County Title Services noted the exception clearly. I closed my eyes for 1 second. So they could not sell it. Not if the record holds. But listen carefully, Liora. This is a civil property dispute first, not a movie. Do not accuse anyone publicly. Do not threaten anyone. Do not write angry texts. Everything goes through paper, records, and counsel. That was exactly the kind of answer I needed, even if part of me wanted something louder. Nora explained the rest without drama. Alan and Meredith Price had bought the surface estate for cash, as is. The old farmhouse and barn gave the lower price some cover. The title company had issued title coverage for the surface estate with the mineral rights exception in place. The affidavit may have supported the surface closing, but it could not erase a recorded mineral deed before Alden's death. So the buyers are not the problem. Correct, and you do not want to make them the problem. Nora contacted Alan and Meredith Price before I did anything else. Alan had worked in banking before retiring, so he understood enough to be annoyed but not confused. Meredith was more nervous. They had bought a quiet place to spend retirement, not a legal mess wrapped in red dirt. Nora called me back after speaking with them. They will allow limited access on February 2, specific areas only, no entry into the residence. You will document everything. You will not wander. I almost laughed at how much she sounded like a field supervisor. Understood. On February 2, I drove back to the ranch with a local field assistant Nora had arranged. The air was cold enough to make my hands stiff inside my gloves. The farmhouse stood at the end of the drive, white paint peeling near the porch steps. Alan met me outside in a canvas jacket, arms crossed. Meredith watched from the porch, a mug held in both hands. Alan looked from my sample kit to my face. Are you trying to take our place from us? No, I am not contesting your surface ownership. I am only verifying an interest my grandfather recorded before the sale. Meredith stepped down one porch stair. We just wanted somewhere quiet. I know. I am sorry you got pulled into this. All communication will stay through Nora. That seemed to help. Not enough to make them comfortable, but enough to let us work. I started at the southwest pasture. The notebook had not exaggerated. Even in winter, the ground there looked different. The clay broke in pale streaks under the topsoil. I marked the coordinates, photographed the area, logged the time, and collected the sample. Then we moved to the old well area, the dry creek bed, the clay ridge, and one northern control point. Every bag was labeled. Every sample was sealed. The chain of custody form stayed on a clipboard against my chest. I had played in that dirt as a girl. Now I was treating it like evidence. Dawson called before I reached the highway. What the hell are you doing on that land? I pulled into a turnout and put the phone on speaker, recording the time in my notebook. All communication needs to go through Nora Vance. You think hiring some Oklahoma City lawyer makes you important? No, it makes this documented. He cursed under his breath. That land is sold, Liora. Every bag was labeled. Every sample was sealed. The chain of custody form stayed on a clipboard against my chest. I had played in that dirt as a girl. Now I was treating it like evidence. Dawson called before I reached the highway. What the hell are you doing on that land? I pulled into a turnout and put the phone on speaker, recording the time in my notebook. All communication needs to go through Nora Vance. You think hiring some Oklahoma City lawyer makes you important? No, it makes this documented. He cursed under his breath. That land is sold, Liora. The surface is sold. He went quiet. Who told you that? The records. I ended the call before he could turn panic into anger. Later, I learned Dawson had called Brett Harlan at Harlan Rural Realty, asking whether the surface estate only wording could be explained differently or cleaned up somehow. Brett refused. The wording came from the title exception and closing documents. It was not a typo, and it could not be revised after closing just because Dawson finally understood what it meant. Marlene took a different route. She called Aunt Verity and told her I was letting lawyers turn me against my own family. Dawson might lose his business. Grant was not sleeping. I was upsetting buyers who had done nothing wrong. My mother made herself sound like the last person trying to keep everyone from drowning. Aunt Verity did not raise her voice. If everything is as clear as you say, why are you afraid of Liora reading the files? Marlene had no answer for that. The next morning, she posted on Facebook, "Some children remember family only when money is involved." Naomi commented with a little heart. Silas wrote that grief showed people's true colors. I took screenshots and sent them to Nora. She replied quickly, "Do not respond. Public arguments make good people look unstable and bad facts look emotional." That same week, Dawson's house started cracking from the inside. Kendra called me from a number I recognized but had never used much. She sounded embarrassed before she even spoke. "Did you sign something giving up your share?" "No." "Did Dawson know that?" "You need to ask Dawson." She went quiet, then lowered her voice. "He keeps saying your mother handled it. That is not an answer." "No, it is not." I did not push her. Kendra had to live in that house, and I was not going to recruit her like Marlene recruited relatives. When Priya called from Prairie Core Analytics, I was back in Denver, sitting at my kitchen table with my phone face down like I could stop bad news by not looking at it. "Pick up," she texted. I answered. "Before you react, this is preliminary," Priya said. "Not a commercial conclusion, not money in your bank account. You would need drilling, feasibility, environmental review, and a real lease process." My stomach tightened. But the Southwest pasture sample is interesting. Lithium-bearing clay indicators, possibly brine-related signatures near the old well area. The control point is much lower. I had a consultant look at the data without your family context. Their preliminary mineral lease potential range is between $3.8 and $5.2 million, assuming later work confirms continuity. The room went silent around me. Grandpa had not left me a fortune, not yet, maybe not ever, but he had left me the legal right to find out whether everyone else had sold the least valuable part and laughed while doing it. Nora moved the next day. She sent notice to Alan and Meredith Price confirming I was not contesting the surface estate. She sent a preservation letter to Marlene, Grant, and Dawson, requiring them to keep estate records, closing documents, communications with Brett Harlan, Ellen Foy, and Plains County Title Services. She also warned their attorney not to repeat that I had voluntarily waived rights without evidence. "Now they know you are not guessing," Nora told me. Grant called that evening. I let it go to voicemail. "Your mother thinks we should talk before this gets worse." He sounded tired. He still did not sound sorry. Marlene sent an email an hour later, long and wounded. I was humiliating Alden's memory. I was destroying Dawson. I was letting strangers poison me against blood. Nora read it and called me. Notice what she did not deny. Aunt Verity called on March 20th. The family was gathering at Marlene and Grant's new lake cabin near Great Salt Plains Lake on March 29th. Silas would be there, Naomi too. Marlene had been telling everyone I was trying to take land from innocent buyers and force Dawson into bankruptcy. I told Nora I did not want a living room trial. Then do not make it one. Facts only, no threats, no conclusions beyond the documents. So I built a folder: the affidavit, my Colorado work records, the listing and title exception, Alden's will, the recorded deed, the notebook pages, Priya's lab summary, clearly marked preliminary mineral lease potential, Nora's chain of title letter. I was not going to the lake cabin to win an argument. Marlene had used the family as an audience for a lie. The truth deserved the same room. On March 29th, I drove to the lake cabin near Great Salt Plains Lake with the folder on the passenger seat and both hands tight on the wheel. The cabin was not grand, but it was new enough to make the point. Fresh paint, clean porch railings, a small flag by the door, the kind of place people buy when they want everyone to know they have landed safely somewhere else. Dawson's new truck sat in the driveway, polished, clean, too bright against the pale gravel. Inside, the house smelled of coffee, ham, and store-bought pie. Someone had placed a framed photo of Grandpa Alden on a side table with a small arrangement of flowers. He looked out from behind the glass in his work shirt, as if he already knew exactly what room he had been placed in. Conversation thinned when I walked in. Marlene stood near the kitchen island with a dish towel folded over one shoulder. She looked tired in the careful way people look tired when they know others are watching. "Liora, this is not the time," she said. Dawson came in from the living room, jaw already tight. "If this is about money, talk to your lawyer." Silas Mercer muttered something about bringing legal mess into a family gathering. Naomi looked down at her phone, suddenly very interested in the screen. Aunt Verity rose from a chair by the window. "Marlene, you have talked about this with everyone here for weeks. If Liora brought papers, let her speak." That was the first crack in the room. I placed the folder on the dining table. My hands were steady, but not because I felt brave. They were steady because Nora had taught me what to hold on to. Facts only. No threats, no conclusions beyond the documents. I opened with the affidavit. This was filed on October 29, 2025. It says I voluntarily waived my claim connected to the estate and surface transfer. I set down my time card from Front Range Water and Soil Consulting, the project emails, and my calendar from that day. I was in Colorado when this was supposedly signed. I did not sign this document. Dawson looked at Marlene first, not at me. Grant lowered his eyes. Kendra turned slowly toward her husband. Naomi stopped pretending to text. Silas frowned at the page. "Marlene, is there some mistake here?" Marlene gave a small, wounded laugh. Everything was chaos after the funeral. Liora may have agreed over the phone and forgotten how it was documented. I looked at her. Agreeing over the phone does not create initials on a notarized document. No one spoke for a few seconds. I laid down the listing next. Harlan Rural Realty, 214 acres, sold for $684,000, surface estate only. Then I placed the title exception beside it. "The buyers own the farmhouse, barn, and surface rights. Allen and Meredith Price are not the problem. They bought what the closing documents said they were buying. The issue is that everyone here was told Grandpa's estate had been handled cleanly, but the title documents show something had already been reserved." Marlene reached for the paper, but Aunt Verity put one hand flat on the table. "Let her finish." I placed Grandpa's will down next, then the recorded mineral and subsurface deed. Grandpa had a will. Howard Bellamy kept it. And before Grandpa died, he recorded a deed transferring the mineral rights and subsurface rights under most of the ranch to me. Dawson's mouth opened, then closed. Mom said Grandpa did not want lawyers involved. Grandpa hired one before any of us knew we needed one. Aunt Verity leaned closer to the will. "Alden always kept his papers clean." Silas turned toward Marlene. "Why did you tell us there was nothing clear?" Marlene's face tightened, but she did not answer him. She looked at me instead. "Your grandfather was old, Liora. He wrote down all kinds of things near the end." I opened the field notebook to the folded page. I did not read every entry. I did not need to. Southwest pasture. Chase Rourke asked about mineral rights in 2022. Liora will understand the southwest corner. Read the records, then read the ground. I looked around the room. He was not guessing. He watched that land for years. Someone had already shown interest in what was under it. That is why he recorded the deed before he died. Marlene shook her head. He did not understand what he was doing. Aunt Verity's voice cut through the room, quiet but sharp. He understood enough not to leave that case in your house. That silence was different from the others. It had weight. Then I set down the lab summary. This is preliminary. It is not money in my bank account. It would require drilling, feasibility review, environmental review, and a real lease process. But the Southwest pasture sample showed enough for a consultant to estimate a preliminary mineral lease potential between $3.8 and $5.2 million if later work confirms the formation. Dawson's expression changed before he could stop it. Anger became calculation. "We can sit down," he said. "As a family, we can figure out what is fair." I looked at him. Do you want to fix this because it was wrong, or because you just found out it might be worth more? Kendra's face had gone pale. You told me this was settled. Settled by who? Dawson had no answer. Marlene started crying then, softly at first. She said Dawson had a family. His business was failing. Grant had not been sleeping. I had always been independent, always away, always able to take care of myself. She asked if I really wanted to tear the family apart over paperwork. I did not feel victory. I felt tired. This family did not start breaking when I opened this folder. It started when my name was put on a document I never signed. Grant finally looked up. Did you know she never signed? Marlene wiped her face. Grant, not here. That was answer enough. I gathered the papers slowly. I told them everything from that point would go through Nora Vance. The affidavit would be challenged. The mineral deed would be protected according to the record. Alan and Meredith Price were not my targets, and I would not negotiate in a living room. Aunt Verity followed me onto the porch. The air smelled like lake water and cold grass. Alden did not want you standing alone, she said. I looked down at the leather case in my hand. He made sure I did not have to. The legal aftermath was quieter than people imagine. No one police stormed in, no one was dragged out. Real consequences often arrive in envelopes and filings. Nora challenged the affidavit and requested Ellen Foy's notary records, any journal entries she kept, and related communications. Alan and Meredith confirmed through counsel that they had purchased only the surface estate and would not contest the recorded mineral deed, if the record held. Red Mesa Extraction Group began reviewing the mineral lease possibility, with drilling and feasibility required before anything became real. Dawson texted later that we should talk about fairness. He never wrote the words, "I was wrong." Kendra sent one message saying she had not known about the affidavit and needed time to understand what Dawson had hidden from her. I told her I was sorry she had been pulled into it. Marlene sent a long email about how I had humiliated her. I did not respond. Grant mailed a letter. He wrote that he never thought it would go this far. He still did not write that he should have stopped it. I kept the letter, but I did not let it become an apology it was not. I went back to Denver. On my desk, I kept a copy of the recorded deed, Alden's field notebook, his letter, and a small legal sample of soil from the southwest pasture. I did not get the family I wanted, but I got my name back from a lie. Marlene lost control of the story. Dawson could no longer hide behind, "Mom handled it." Grant could no longer call silence peace. And I finally understood what Grandpa had really left me. Not just rights under the ground, but the truth under everything they tried to bury. If you have ever been called selfish just because you asked for the truth, then you know why I could not stay quiet. If your own family used the word family to erase your place in a story that belonged to you, what would you have done? Would you have kept the peace or opened the folder in front of everyone?